Okay, welcome everybody to the third live stream for October 2023. Today we're going to look at the last bit of improvising that we're going to cover this month, looking at using short and long resolutions to build a solo, less based on the rhythmic contour of the actual song, Matchbox Blues, and just treating the blues more as a blues. And at one point in the PDF, I did refer to this as the lyric form. And that's because this is actually the rhythmic contour of, it's a very common rhythmic contour for blues in general to have this, well, I'll get into it. But basically, we can think of it as playing with the resolutions or playing with the lyric form. I kind of use those two ideas interchangeably. But nice to see all of you here. It's finally not like the inside of a pizza oven when you step outside here in Austin, so everyone's excited about that here. Although it sounds like it's still colder and wetter everywhere else, and I'm still jealous. But anyway, let's get to it. And I did post version 1.2 of the PDF finally. So thanks for anybody who had input about typos. If you still find some, just post in the forum or let me know. If I can manage it, I'll get another, yet another revision up. But I think I caught as much as I could for this current version. And it's uploaded to all 3 live stream pages for this month. So it should be possible to get your hands on that. And that's what I'll be using as a reference during today's live stream. Okay. So let's get to it. Let me get the PDF up. So let's just go over the resolutions first. If you've been here for a while, we've talked about these a fair amount, but if you're new or you need to review it, it's always worth talking about. This is the idea that as important as what scale do I use is the question of what phrasing do I use? What kind of rhythmic shape do I sort of pour that scale into? And we talked a lot the last couple of weeks about the rhythmic contour of the melody. These are more sort of, I hate to say generic, but these are just typical kinds of blues phrases. A lot of song melodies and a lot of blues guitar soloing and other instruments soloing take on these particular rhythms or slight variations on them. So these make great building blocks, and I'm going to show you a particular way to string them together so that your solos can have a kind of internal logic, and so that it only takes a few simple ideas to get your solo off the ground. Because if you're building a solo up out of phrases, you don't have to make every lick different from the previous lick. A lot of soloing is built out of repetition, theme and variation, all that good stuff. So first we have the short resolution, very typical kind of short resolution, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So that and 4 and 1 da, 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 is really common in the blues. And so in this exercise, you play the pickup phrase. The arrow shows that it's landing on the downbeat of the beginning of the measure. But if you want to keep looping it around for practice, then just you're going to play this phrase at the end of the bar, and 4 and 1. And so you can just take this around and around like this. You're just lining up your fingers. With the thumb, you've got a pinch on 1, then the bass, then and 4 and. So that's the short resolution. And we're going to use that as yet another rhythmic container. We're going to put some licks into that in just a minute. The long resolution starts typically on the and of 2, but it's any kind of resolution that starts somewhere in the first half of the measure and doesn't resolve till you get all the way to the next bar. So here we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then if you want to resolve that, Or if you want to loop that, sorry, then you would resolve it here, and then you would start in the second measure on the and of 2, and you'd have 1 and pinch and pinch and pinch and then back around. And this is actually resolving. It's kind of an anticipation. And anticipation is one of those music theory words. To anticipate something means to do it a little bit sooner in music than you would think. So instead of landing literally on the downbeat, we actually resolve on the and of 4. So it's anticipating the downbeat by the difference of an eighth note, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so we hear it as coming in like to match that downbeat, but it's really resolving on the and of 4. So when you go to loop it around, you're not going to play right on the downbeat. So to loop it would sound like this. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now these are just good coordination exercises, among other things. So they're good for improvisation, but they're also good for just getting your right hand, your picking hand dialed in. And so even if you don't feel like you're quite ready for the improvising part of this yet, it's not a bad idea to spend a little time with these rudiments, with these resolutions, just to start getting some of that thumb and finger coordination more specific. Okay, the delayed resolution is when you don't really land on the downbeat or even just ahead of the downbeat, but you land at least halfway or more into the next measure or the measure that you're resolving in. So here we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're not really resolving until we get to the end of 2. So more than halfway through the measure. So playing in a loop, we'd have measure 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Oops, play the next note there. Here it is one more time. I won't talk this time. Okay, so short resolution, long resolution, delayed resolution. Those are the ones we're going to work with. Now, the challenge of trying to improvise over a chord progression is that you need to be able to keep all this coordination going and change chords. So you got to think, well, got to be able to get to the next chord while still thinking about the chord you're on. And because these are leading from one chord to the next, it's particularly challenging because you're thinking, like, for example, if we want to switch between A7 and D7 and we want to lead into each next bar, we're going to be thinking A, and now here we're thinking this is leading us into D, and then maybe we're going to lead back into A. So if you can start working on just, again, the coordination of playing rhythmically in a way that's approaching the next bar, before you even get into the licks, just worrying about what do you got to do over here and be thinking, oh yeah, the melody is kind of leading me towards the next bass line. So we'd have this. Played from the beginning, this exercise looks like this. And 4 and 1 to the A chord, and 4 and 1 to the D chord, and And so then we could also have the same thing with long resolutions. So here's starting on A and then having a long resolution over the D chord. A lot of what we want to be able to do on the blues form is play from D back to the A chord. So long resolution back to A. So that's what we're practicing here, and you're not going to really play on the downbeat because this is an anticipation. It resolves on the end of 4. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So that's 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So that would be if we wanted to play a lick like, you know, right? It's that rhythm. Finally, having a delayed resolution. And the place this comes up the most commonly on a 12-bar blues is bar 9 over the 5 chord. When you're about to go after that to the D chord. And so to practice it, we would loop around like this. We'd have 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then play some D. And then here's a short resolution from D, or the beginning of the delayed resolution, really. Right? So those are the 6 exercises. And the way this is all going to go together is we're going to play another A, B, C, B form with the groove on the back half. But we're going to start off with a short resolution into the first bar. And then we're going to play a long resolution back into the groove. So we're going to play a short resolution into A, into the, well, it is literally an A chord. We're going to play the first phrase. The A phrase is going to be a short resolution into the 1 chord. And then when we get to the 4 chord, we're going to play a long resolution from the end of 2, which is going to take us into bar 3 and the groove. And then we'll have a short resolution that leads into the D chord. And then again, a long resolution that leads us back to the groove. And then a delayed resolution onto the 5 chord. That's our C lick, our third kind of lick. Long resolution. Back to the groove. Now this really does imitate certain kinds of blues licks. So if you imagine like a really short resolution, like come on. So 1 and 2 and 3 and come on. And then here's your long resolution. Baby, don't you want to go? It even anticipates. Baby, don't you want to go? There's the downbeat. Come on. Baby, don't you want to go? And then you have another short resolution. Come on. This is a really low key for my voice. Baby, don't you want to go? And now here comes your delayed resolution, right? Back to that same old place, right? So back to that is your pickup, and then right on the downbeat, same old place. That takes you at least halfway into the measure. Same old place. And then here's your long resolution. Sweet home, Chicago. And that's not the only song that does that. Like you could have every day. There's your short resolution. Every day I have the blues. There's your long resolution. Every day, short resolution to the 4 chord. Long, every day I have the blues. Now here comes my delayed resolution. Well, you see me worry. I don't remember what the melody does, but it's halfway into the bar. 'Cause it's you I hate to lose. Right? So there's two examples. I could go on. You know, the sky is crying. There's a slightly longer pickup, but the sky is crying. See the tears rolling down the street. All the melodies are sounding the same, but the phrasing is the important thing, the rhythm, right? So lots of tunes do this. Lots of tunes don't, like Matchbox Blues, but lots of tunes do. So that's why I think of it as the lyric form. It kind of follows the form of a lot of classic blues lyrics. But we can also think of it as mixed resolutions, short, long, and delayed resolutions. So that's our model. And here's an example of that. So here's the solo I just made up using these kinds of phrases. Sounds like this. I'm not even playing the groove, I'm just playing the bass on the back half of each line. So here's short resolution, long resolution, and the groove. And repeats, short resolution, long resolution, groove, delayed resolution, long resolution, groove. And again, everything on this side of the page, this 3/4 of the page, is the same every time. It's just... just D7 and then 2 bars of groove on A. So these are the parts that change. And the only difference between this part and this part is here we're playing over A, and here we're playing over D over F sharp. And then finally, of course, here we're playing over E. So here's the whole solo one more time. I'll try to slow it down a little too. 1, 2, 3. Oh man, one more time. 1, 2, 3. So that's our model. Now, over here for our first lick, I've got 4 different ways we can play that first lick, 4 different short resolutions into A. And then here are 4 long resolutions from D7 that would take you back to A. And then, here are 4 delayed resolutions that would take you from A into the E chord. So all we have to do is combine one of these, and one of these again, but landing on a D in the bass, and then one of these, and then one of these, and then one of these again. So the only thing I didn't write out was landing on D7, but I will show you how to do that. So here we go. So the first lick we have is... And so this lick is sliding from the flat third to the major third. And that's a cool sound, but it takes a little bit of daring do on the fretting hands part because you still need the bass, right? Because you're coming from 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So it's a bit of a cheat. The thumb still goes over to the 4th string. This little bar goes back 1 fret, and you play actually 1st fret on the 4th string, E flat, along with the C, and then you slide the whole thing up. So, and so the way that would sound is you're coming from, let's see, at the end of the 3rd line, this next one is kind of the reverse. But you still kind of need to use this little bar position. So the lick is major third, root, flat 7. So you're going to pinch there and then lift off to get the open 7, and then you're back. So 1, 1, 2, 3. Like that. Now, next, not finally, but next here is the third one. We have, so, and I did all of these with the major third because during all the rhythmic contour exercises, I kind of stuck to the blues scale. And when we were doing, I guess, when we were doing Trouble in Mind in E, after doing a bunch of blues licks, someone was like, well, what about that brighter, more major sound? So I wanted to make sure we included that. And in the alternating thumb style, it's a little tricky. Like, you got to do these little moves. So here we've got, so here's your thumb. And then you're going to have to move. And I would just do it again, the slide with the whole short bar, so that you're in position to get your, to hold down the bass on the 4th string with the tip of your index finger. So this third example here, 1, 2, 3. Like that. And then finally, here's the last one, root, 3, 5, root. And for this one, again, we're going to have the sliding bass, but this time it's a quick slide. So you're going to pinch with the little bar at the 1st fret, playing E flat down here and C here, but do a quick slide. So 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2. So you're going to have to be holding this down, pick the index, move to slide, lift everything off, get the high note. Like that. So those are all the A moves. And then here are, oh, I should talk about this now. If you want to land any one of these on the 4 chord, you just have to make this, you just have to move the bass from an open A down to an F sharp. So, and you can also turn any of these back into a blues lick with no major third. If they're too hard, you can do them on the 1 chord, or you can do them on your way into the D chord. So this next one, you can land on the D chord there. For this one, or you could make it, you could just go, right? Just don't even worry about the major third. And that'll get you over the D chord. And same thing here. D like that with the F sharp in the bass, or just turn it into a blues lick. Right, so any one of these, you can omit the C sharp if it's messing you up, and it'll make all of these licks much easier. And you can do that to land on the A or to land on the D. Now, here are the long resolutions, all played on D, all landing. You don't see it happening, but you would go back to A in the gap here after each one of these licks. And I've written out a couple solos where all this stuff is stitched together. So if seeing it in this modular way makes your head explode, there'll be some solos you can start with. And once you've practiced 1 or 2 of those solos, when you go back and look at these modular bits, it'll make a lot more sense. So don't worry if this is like a little abstract. There's a way to kind of get it more into your head that's coming. So anyway, here are the long resolutions, or the B phrases, like this. There's the first one. So long resolution, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, of course you go to an A there. The second one kind of turns things around. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the third one. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and finally 1 and 2 and 3 and so those are all the ones that resolve from D back to A. And then finally, here are the delayed resolutions on E. So here you're playing the back half of an A chord, right? You're coming out of bar 8, right? So if I played a full bar, you'd have so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and, right? So you could focus just on the full bar here, like just start with, and then kind of work your way into it. But that's how that one sounds. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now this one is, again, same rhythm. So 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then here we have 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and of course these would be going to D, right? So and again, I've got some written examples that will show how this stuff all fits together. And finally, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So the D chord. So those are the licks. Whoops. Okay. So, you pick one from each. For instance, the second A lick, the first B lick, and the third C lick. You're going to go A, B, A, with a little adaptation here to put the F sharp in the bass, and then back to B, and then C, and then B. So that'll look like this. That's how those pieces would fit together, and I wrote it out. So if you wanted to see what that all looks like, including well, here I put the groove back in, I guess. And so if you want to have the groove in here, and then here you can see this lick played without the major third and resolving to the D chord, right? So here's the whole thing. This is the written version. If you take these 3 licks and then work them into the 12-bar model, this is what you get. Landing on the D. Playing the groove. Delayed resolution. Here's the whole thing again. 1, 2, 3. So that's one way to do it. And again, you can learn the model first, this one, and then go back and look at some of the different permutations. Here's another way to do it. You could take the 3rd A, the 4th B, and the 2nd C. And we'd have this. So there's the A lick. And we'd go to repeat the A, or just now here comes delayed resolution. Back to that's how those pieces fit together. And again, I wrote this out. So if you want to, come on. So if you want to see that whole thing, it looks like this. Landing on the D. There it is. Okay, one more time so I don't make any mistakes. We'll see if that happens. 1, 2, 3. Basically, I had one little stumble there, but it just made it into a hammer-on. So that's what that sounds like. So this is kind of the 3-step process, because improvising, you know, it feels like a mountain to climb, right? So if you start just learning a couple of composed solos, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it is how people have learned, some very sophisticated musicians have learned how to solo. People like Charlie Parker, you know, late in his short life, could still sit and play back entire Lester Young solos from memory, because that's how he learned to play. Is he memorized solos by Lester Young and by Johnny Hodges. Those are the models for what to do. And same thing, like, John Coltrane, like, memorized a whole bunch of Charlie Parker solos. That's part of the improvisation process, is to memorize other people's solos as etudes, and then you can break them apart. So if you start by just saying, well, how does a solo go? Well, here's a good example of one, right? If you want to learn how to solo, you can do a lot worse than check out, solos by great improvisers. Now, this is like not really, so I don't want to say like the solos I wrote out for you are like the equivalent of like Charlie Parker solos, but they're examples of how a solo could go, right? So you learn a composed solo, and then the next step is to go, every time we get to the 5 chord, we do this kind of thing. What else could I do when I get to the 5 chord? And that's when you go back to those permutations. You go, well, I got 4 choices here. So you take the memorized solo, and then you go, what if when I get to the 5 chord, I put in that lick? And so you do that with each step, right? Because there's 6, the whole solo's only got 6 licks, right? 6 spots, and some of them are repetitions. So that's what the idea is with those permutations, is you just practice swapping in different ones. You don't have to eat the whole elephant right away. You don't have to be immediately putting all those permutations together. The first step is just to learn one written out version. The next step is to take one part of that, 1/6 of that solo, and just be able to swap in 1 or 2 variations on it. And then once you've internalized the form, the idea that I'm going to play an A, B, A, B, C, B solo, then you can start to improvise in the sense that you can start to just swap in those different permutations you've been given on the fly. And there's, a 4th layer down here where you're starting to come up with your own variations and permutations, and where you're coming up with other ways to play through the form than the 2 that I've given you. But you don't have to worry about that for a while. These 3 steps are enough to keep you busy for a long time. And I do realize that the alternating thumb presents a much bigger challenge to a lot of people than the steady bass. So in the name of completeness, and because a lot of people play in the alternating thumb style, or they show up here like having played pattern picking or alternating thumb stuff, or John Hurt tunes or Freight Train or whatever, I do want to cover some of that alternating thumb territory. But for improvising, it's kind of unusual. It's much more common to hear people improvising over the steady bass, those, sort of the Lightnin' Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb, kind of people. So this is a little bit, avant-garde in a way, but it can be done, and it can get you some really nice results. So that's pretty much it for this for now. Comment from Tracy. So the only way to solo is to memorize patterns. No, that's not the only way. It's a way to do it. You can, what I'm attempting to do is actually create some kind of framework for doing something that a lot of people do intuitively, and which means that people who improvise intuitively usually can't explain how they're doing what they're doing, because they've gone through these 3 processes without anything written down, right? They've gone from listening to records and fooling around on their guitar, or hearing people live, or growing up in a more musical community. And they've heard solos, they've messed around with licks, they've heard so much of this stuff that it's just internalized already. This is what I've witnessed from seeing people that came from sort of within an improvising or a blues playing tradition, is that when you ask them to explain how they did it, the explanation was, well, I heard it a lot, and I watched what people were doing, or I listened to so-and-so, and that I just started doing it. So between that is why I think a lot of us just feel so perplexed when you see, when you try to learn improvising from someone like that. It's through no fault of their own. It's hopeless, because they've short-circuited the process by virtue of being an intuitive musician, and you can't communicate that intuition. So I'm attempting to create like, some building blocks or some stepping stones towards the improvising that kind of tries to mimic what that intuitive process would be and breaks it down in a more, visual and language kind of way to say, well, this is kind of what the process is, right? Like you model it on good soloing that you've heard, and if you want to start getting beyond memorize the tab, like don't try to go from A to Z. Like there's this middle ground where you can swap in like little bits, right? Because that's what licks are. Licks are just, oh yeah, this is a good thing to do over the 4 chord. This is a good thing to do over the 5 chord, right? So it's just trying to verbalize some of that intuitive process and say, yeah, when you get to the 5 chord, here's 4 different things that sound good. If you can remember these 4 different things, when you get to the 5 chord, pick one. And that's the beginning of improvising. So that's sort of the idea. Let me see some of these comments because I want to respond to these instead of just extemporize. So I hope that kind of answers it. The patterns will become muscle memory in the sense that it's such a cliche, but improvised music is a language. Like when you there's a difference between composing an essay and having a conversation with a friend. And so when you're talking across the table from somebody, unless you've sat down to have a fight with someone that you've really been thinking about this for a long time, you don't have a bunch of pre-planned things to say, right? They say something and you respond. And you have syntax, right? You know how to put a sentence together. You're not thinking, what's my verb, what's my noun, what's my adjective, what's my subjective clause, or, you're not thinking about any of that. You're talking because you've grown up around people who speak your language. And so you just do it, right? But that takes a certain amount of practice. And so where to pause, where to breathe, where to gesture, those are all things you learn. And so I'm basically saying, here's where to speak, here's where to pause and let something else happen, here's where to respond to that with something that feels like more of a response than just the same thing again, and so on. So it's basically, the idea behind learning these licks and learning these solos and then breaking them down into permutations and learning to vary the permutations is basically, to sort of just get the syntax into your head, into your hands, into your ears. It's got to be in all those places eventually, right? So that you can use it more organically. Let's see. Well, the good thing about memorizing is when you forget, then your mistake is the start of the improvising. For sure. I mean, it's a delicate balance here. It's like, if you are studying something, you want to, I am giving you specific things to work on because I think those specific things will help. And so they are written a certain way because I think, well, that would be a good thing to know how to do. So there is value in getting as close to that as you can. But there is also value in getting as close as you can and going, well, I'm going to do this now. And as long as your time is still good, it's okay, right? And as long as you're not playing something that really clashes with the chord, it's okay. It's really up to you how close you want to try to get to the example and when you want to just go, that's as close as I can get. Now I'm going to do my own thing. Everybody does that. Nobody can play, almost nobody can play exactly like their musical inspiration, right? Everything is an approximation and an attempt to get as close as possible. And then you're just not the other person, right? Elvis couldn't physically sound like Arthur Crudup. He could come close, he could play the same song, he could phrase similarly, he could appropriate the groove. It's not going to come out sounding like the original record. It just isn't. And the same thing, the Beatles don't sound like Chuck Berry when they do Roll Over Beethoven. And, whatever. Beethoven doesn't sound like Haydn, right? He probably wanted to at first, or whoever was, big at the time. Nobody ends up coming out exactly the same. But all of those people did a long apprenticeship trying to get as close as they could. So, if you're doing it for fun, you get to decide if you want to get 50% there, 30% there, 70% there. It's really okay. Let's see. What else have we got? Well, some very kind words here. Thanks. Glad this is Dark Arts of Improvisation. I like it. Okay. From Matt, on your weekly YouTube things over the past weeks, you did some breaks on Matchbox up the fretboard. Could you show us some of those? Let me show you one or two. I'm going to include a little bit of stop time in the arranging month, which is coming right up. So we will get into this a little bit, but basically what I'm doing is taking the first 4 bars, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, and coming back in with the bass, with the time, with the band, if you will, on the 4 chord, right? So it's the same approach as on Mule Shoe Getaway, which starts with 4 bars of stop time during the solos. So basically, I'm basically using what I call the swing scale, right? Which is this overlay of minor pentatonic, or the blues scale really, and the major pentatonic scale, which when you put them together gives you all those notes: root, flat 3, 3, 4, flat 5, 5, 6, flat 7, root, and 9. So these licks are those kinds of things. And it's a lot of 8th notes, just da-ka, 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 da-ka. So here's root, 5th, flat 7, 6, 5, 6, flat 3, 3, 5, flat 5, 4, 5, 3, root, 6, 5. And then maybe, full screen. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good idea. Wink. Okay, how's that? Yeah, so let me do that again. So the scale, root, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 7, and root, and then root 2, major 3, 5, 6, root, put them together, root, flat 3, 3. I'm skipping the 2 because that's just kind of how you end up using it, and I'm putting the 2 up top and calling it the 9th. So root, flat 3, 3, 4, flat 5, 5, 6, flat 7, root, 9. And so this first lick, let's just stick to that for now as a sort of model for how this stuff goes. Root, 5, flat 7, 6, 5, 6, flat 3, 3. That's the first measure. And I'm pulling off whenever I'm going down and whenever it makes sense. And then slide, 5, flat 5, 4, flat 3, slide to 3, root, 6, 5. So in slow motion. And from here you could keep going. great, but let's see. Let me think about what I'd really do there. So here's root, here's the second half, measures 3 and 4. Root, 5, hammer onto 6. So root, 5, 6, root, 7. I'm playing it here instead of open so that I can pull off. 7, 6, flat 7, 6, 5. And then, let's see, flat 3, hammer onto 3 to 5. Again, flat 3 to 3, and then the root, and then 5, 6 to root again. This is kind of repetitive, but well, I guess 5, 6, 5 would be better. So well, I keep playing something different each time. There we go. Root, 5, 6, root, flat 7, 6, 5, flat 3, 3, 5, flat 3, 3, root, 5, 6, root. So that's how one of those gets put together. So Matt, I hope that kind of answers your question. That's one of them. And I'll try to include at least a couple of those written out for next month. So no live stream next week. And then we'll start with arranging Matchbox Blues, which is what we'll cover in November. And then we'll have a 1 month tune in December. And then we'll start with, pretty sure we're going to do a steady bass tune starting in January for the next few months after that. So that's what I came here to talk about. I hope that makes sense. If you got more questions, I can probably squeeze in 1 or 2 more. Don't forget to go get the download of the current PDF. And also, I'm going to start this thread on the forum, but I am working on getting the forum itself updated better than the one that we have. And also, someone was really frustrated in the forum with some of the navigation still, which I understand. So as I go through looking at how to improve the navigation and organization of the website itself, the membership website, and the forum, I want to collect as many ideas from everybody as possible. So about how that could be better, what you'd like to see for a forum, what you'd like to see being easier to find in the membership itself, any and all of that stuff, let me know. So if I don't get to a thread first, if someone wants to start one, I want to collect as much input about both of those things as possible. All right. Thanks so much for being here. Great to see you all. See you on the forum. And next month, we'll get into the arranging.